I work as a principal engineering manager in Microsoft. I lead a team of about 70 people, and I work on Bing. Does anybody here use Bing? Okay, thank you. And I've been in Microsoft for almost 20 years now. In May I complete 20 years. And apart from the continued career of 20 years, I also have multiple interests, including running, cycling, which is more recently, but I also sing Carnatic classical music, and I teach a few kids. So that's all of me. And there's a lot of personal details in terms of my career and so on. Shripriya here was telling me that today's focus is about gender equality in the workplace. I'm going to touch upon that topic by weaving in a little bit of my journey itself. I grew up in Chennai, very determined mother to see her daughter have a great career. Though the father was very protective and wouldn't even send me for IIT coaching classes because it was after 6 p.m. So, I got into IIT, but for what I wanted to do something decent, I had to go all the way to Varanasi. I went to IIT BHU, and in those days, this is about 25 years back, more than 25 years back, it was a complete no-no. I mean, my kids actually were born in the US, and my older one is in 12th, and we are considering sending my older one for undergrad in the US. And I was telling my husband, it's better than me going from Chennai to Varanasi, because even if you want to, there's no way you can actually come back in less than 2 days. Even if you want to just run away, there's no way. And you can't even talk to each other so often. Here you have every device possible, every app possible to just be in touch all the time you want. That is a different thing as to whether my son wants to be in touch with me is a different thing. But but if you want to, you can. So there was a huge journey going from Chennai all the way to Varanasi to do an undergrad. And you know what? I studied metallurgical engineering because my father, in whatever job that he was in, he felt that metallurgical engineers were more valued than mechanical engineers. So he said metallurgical engineering is what you'd be studying. So I did that. Not many women study metallurgical engineering. So I ended up being the only woman in class of 23. And there started the whole experience. There started the whole experience of what gender equality means, right? We're talking about metallurgical engineering, and even otherwise, I think most engineerings in the first year, you have to do all this foundry, and there is this bunch of block that you have to make from that to this. There is the lathe machine. So doing all of that as a woman, so you get used to not being treated, rather you don't want to be specially treated as a woman because you want to be treated as an equal. You want to be doing everything that these men do because there are two things, the brain and the brawn. We feel brain, we are actually smarter. So, and the brawn, of course, we can build it over time. Now coming to Microsoft as a workplace, I'll be very honest and say that a lot has changed in Microsoft, and I'm sure for many other companies too, in the last 4 to 5 years. It was a very different place before. Microsoft per se, I can talk about it because I've been there for 20 years. It was a very alpha male heavy kind of culture, right? The louder you are, there's a lot of it was not uncommon to see people talking with expletives, F words, in meetings. That was not uncommon. So that was the environment. I didn't feel comfortable, and I was a minority. I didn't know how to handle it, but went on. Life moved, life went on. But recently, the last 4-5 years, I think thanks to Satya has come in and he's brought a whole sense of different kind of leadership, lot of inclusiveness and lot of realization I guess he himself has had. And it's a changed company. It's a completely changed company. We explicitly go look for making sure that the environment is inclusive. And I can tell you from my personal experience that because the environment is so much more inclusive and supportive, I feel more supported. I feel I'm able to do better in my work because I just feel that I'm accepted as I am. I don't need to mold myself to what the popular thinking is. Okay, so we'll go a little bit more deeper into this. Okay, so I'm very happy to see a lot of women here and men. Thank you. A lot of these Women's Day talks, typically it's only women. I'm very happy to see the men as well here. I've been in Microsoft, worked on the various products. I'll talk about one meeting that happened in, I think about 2010, early 2010, where there was this meeting full of all these architects, partners and all that, and I was presenting my idea. And I was completely talked over. They were talking to each other and they were saying the same thing I was saying, but I was not heard. I was absolutely not heard. Because it's that majority culture. This was before all the changes that Microsoft had gone through. And I felt, okay, what am I doing in this meeting, right? Nobody is even acknowledging the fact that I'm there. And of course, I was the only woman in the room. There have been many, many meetings in which I'm the only woman in the room. So how does it make somebody like that feel? And how do you expect a woman like that to, or a person like that, it may be even a man with a very introvert or very shy kind of behave, that's how they are, right? And how do you make them feel comfortable to give their best when the environment is like that, right? So it's super, super important to acknowledge every person in the room and make sure that you hear every person in the room. Now, I don't need to go through all the studies. There have been many, many studies which have been done, which have proven that companies with a diverse culture, actually the bottom line, the revenue and all that is so much, grows so much more and so much better because they're just able to have that growth mindset, able to listen to everyone, able to change fast. The diversity in the culture and the embracing the diversity actually helps you do better, much, much better in the long run. Then I'll give another small example of my current work. It's a very positive example. I have so we build experiences on Bing.com. One of my partner teams, they build experience for what is called retail experiences. We mostly do it for the US market. So let's say during Thanksgiving and something, you're buying something, all those things that you see, this for sale and all that. It's a retail experience, and it was very nice when the manager came and said, you know, the only reason we were able to build such a good experience is because we wanted a program manager on the team, and we explicitly went and looked for and hired a woman program manager on the team. Because you know what? Who does most of the shopping? So if you want to understand your customers, you need somebody who can understand your customers. So it is important to have a diverse and inclusive environment where you can truly understand your customers and deliver what you need for them. Okay? So that is about the work and what does it mean to be inclusive. And going back to my personal journey, I mean, all my running and running a marathon in a sari, that was the first time anybody ran a full marathon in a sari. I truly believe, thank you, that if you set your heart on something, right, just go after it. Go after it with all your heart. A lot of times what stops us is our own fears. So we've been doing this class, something called a culture training, where we look deeply at our fears. There's a lot of fears that we've all been conditioned with. And I'll be very transparent, honest with you, of one of my fears. You're growing up being told, you know, you're a woman, you do this, anything you do is, you know, above and beyond. I don't expect anything from you. You go study, that's great. You go do this, that's great. I don't expect anything. But you know what? The men will of course do it better than you. So when you grow up in that, deep down, lot of women may have this thing in them saying, have to work extra hard to prove that if there was a man in this role, they have done equally well, or I want to do equally well or better than another man who could have been in this role. And trust me, every one of the women that I've talked to in a professional setting, they all feel that way. They all feel compelled from deep down to outdo themselves. Kind of, what if there was a man in this role? Man would have done anything better? would they have done something even better than how I am doing, right? So a lot of women struggle with this, and I'm no different, right? And this whole running a marathon in a sari was also an experience where, I mean, it was not a man-woman thing, but they were much better runners than me, and I didn't know if I could actually do better. And clearly there are better runners than me, because I had the Guinness World Record and another lady broke my record in September. So, but it was a great experience for me in conquering my fears. Fears about being told that, you attempted it, but you didn't get it. What if I actually ran a marathon in a sari and didn't do it under 5 hours? What would people think? I would become a laughing stock, right? So all these fears had to be conquered in order to go do that. And similarly, on a day-to-day basis, big kudos to each and every one of these men here. If something doesn't go well, sorry, each and every one of these women here, if something doesn't go well, when you're in a big responsible position, and if something doesn't go well, deep down, our own voices are telling us, do you think a man could have done this better? Unfortunately, that's the reality. And so if workplaces today are going above and beyond, bending over backwards to make these women comfortable, because we see the value in the women, but by nature, they're holding themselves back, right? So you don't want them to do that. They're trying everything possible to overcome those fears. So that's where we need to explicitly assist these women to have that inclusive workplace. And so yeah, so going back to the marathon, yes, it was all about conquering the fears, conquering the fear of failure, conquering the fear of becoming a laughing stock, conquering the fear of being seen as someone who attempted but failed. Yes, it was about conquering all those fears. All of us have a lot of fears on a day-to-day basis. There are some fundamental fears which our minds are conditioned, and that's how we survive also. Clearly we have a fear of putting our hand in fire, right? And if we were not afraid of it, we would get burned down, right? So we survive today because we are afraid to jump into water, because when you don't know swimming, or we are afraid to put our hand in fire. That's how our body has been conditioned to survive, right? But along with that, there are also a lot of conditioning for the ego, which actually has a lot of these fears. And it takes, it's both men and women. We all have a lot of these fears. It's about understanding those fears, and there are many of them, they're deep. And even if you understand them, it's not that easy to overcome them. It's like a conditioning, it just comes back. And when we have an inclusive environment at work, is when everybody feels comfortable to overcome some of these deep, introspect and understand these deep fears, overcome them, and then act with courage with whatever needs to be done. All of us need an inclusive environment. Thank you.